What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again today for another season preview. Today it is the Tampa Bay Lightning, as we are now back on track doing one every single day, as I posted two yesterday. The GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Julian Breezewa, he's going into year 8. He's been here since Steve Yzerman left, and the coach been here even longer. John Cooper's been going into year 14 as the Tampa Bay Lightning head coach. Easily, I believe, the longest tenured coach of the team, and he can pretty much quit whenever he wants, or they fall off a cliff entirely. Looking at their forward group, their top 6 is dangerous. You have Getzel, $9 million until 2031. Braden Point, $9.5 million until 2030. And Kucherov, $9.5 million until 2027. Then you have Hagel, $6.5 million until 2032. What a bargain. Sorelli, $6.25 million until 2031. And Bjorkestrand, $5.4 million until 2026. On the third line, you have Yanni Gourde with an interesting extension by the Tampa Bay Lightning, $2.333 million until 2031. Nick Paul, $3.15 million until 2029, and Goncalves, $1.2 million until 2027, where he is an RFA. On the fourth line, you have Holmberg, $1.55 million until 2027. Gergensons, $850,000 until 2027, and Geeky, who's an RFA in 2027. A guy like that, Connor Geeky's finally getting into the lineup. He did not play a huge role. Hopefully he gets more and more of a role, as he was a top 5 pick, I believe. Looking at their depth, they have Peltier, who they brought in, Chafee, who I think both of them should be in the lineup, but they're good depth to have. Boris Kachuk, Sabrin, and Abrazazi, some names of note. Sam O'Reilly, who was drafted 32nd overall by Edmonton a couple years ago now, I believe. He is now a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning due to the trade with Isaac Howard, who I realized I forgot to put on the board now in subtraction, so let me write that down. But he's probably not going to play this year. Maybe gets a game or two, but I doubt it. But Sam O'Reilly is one of their younger prospects coming up, which is something Tampa doesn't have a lot of because they've traded a ton of draft picks over the last couple of seasons. 2 to Chicago, then they're everything to Nashville for Tanner Jeannot. Then they traded a bunch to Seattle for Gourde and Bjorkestrand. So, yeah. Looking at their defensive group, it's a pretty solid defensive group. You have Hedman, $8 million until 2029. Mosier, $3.375 until 2026, where he will be an RFA. Surprised. Feels like he's been in the league for a bit now. You have Ryan McDonough, $6.75 million until 2026. That's a big cap hit off the books. Something that Tampa desperately needs is cap space. Cernak, $5.2 million until 2031. Liljeberg, RFA in 2027. And then Darren Radish, who will surely be getting a raise, $975,000 until 2026. Defensive depth, they really only have Crozier in terms of names that were recognizable. Then you have in net Vasilevsky, $9.5 million until 2028, and Jonas Johansson, which $1.25 million until 2027. Not probably one of the better backups in the league. I'm surprised he got that much to be the backup. He was a third string for a long while. It's good to see he's found some stability, but still I think a little much for Johansson. So they didn't really have any goaltending depth either. It's really Vasilevsky's net, and no one's challenging for it. So if he goes down, there might be an issue. Looking at additions and subtractions. Additions, Holmberg from Toronto, Peltier from Philadelphia, and O'Reilly from Edmonton. Subtractions, Nick Perbix signs in Nashville. He's a presence I think they'll miss on the blue line. He was a defenseman I liked here. Preferably you'd want Perbix in over Liljeberg, I think. Liljeberg, though, is getting the chance to fill in that role. He's a young defenseman. He's getting that chance to really go into a top 6 role. Then you have Atkinson, who didn't play a ton, but was there. Glendening, who's still a free agent, I believe. Connor Sherry, I believe he signed a PTO with someone. And Isaac Howard's gone to the Edmonton Oilers. They finished second in the division this year. They're a top 3 team in the division, no doubt. The question of when this team is going to get too old really comes up a lot now. Getzel, I believe, is turning 30, or if not, is 30. Point is getting up there now. He's not old by any means, but he's in his prime of his career. He's not going to be in his prime forever. Kucherov's getting up there. He's one that's still defying the odds and playing very well, even though he is getting older. A little, not super old, but he's getting older. Vasilevsky as well, another goaltender that's getting older. And, of course, Hedman, drafted all the way back in 2009 as a second overall pick that year. McDonough as well. Gourde's an older guy. Bjorkestrand. Nick Paul, although he's not old, is third-line center in his early 30s. So what you see here is a team it's definitely in win-now mode. It's got a lot of veteran presence, and that's part of the reason I think they let Stamkos go. One, because of cap space, and two, they need to get a little bit younger in this team's lineup. Something that Ottawa, Montreal, Florida, Toronto, teams that are all younger than them. It might be part of the reason that Tampa was ousted so early to Florida the last 2 seasons. But overall, I think still just with this top 6 alone, still a top 3 team in the division, especially with this top 4 defense and Vasilevsky. Like, you can't really beat that many other ways. This team's made the playoffs a lot of times in a row, and it would have been every year since 2014 had they not had the injury bug in 2017 and just narrowly missed the playoffs. 2018, they go 54-23-5 for 113 points, which they finished 3rd. 2019 is the huge year. 62-16-4, 128 points, first in the league, President's Trophy, first team with 60 wins since the 1996 Detroit Red Wings, and they're out in the first round by the Columbus Blue Jackets in a sweep. Historically the worst choke of all time in hockey. 2018, I forgot to mention, they lost in the conference final to Washington in 7. 2020, they remembered what happened in 2019, and including beating Columbus, they marched their way to a Stanley Cup. 43-21-6 record for 92 points at the time of the pause. 3rd in the league once again, and they weren't going to be denied. Going into that playoffs, they were a top 4 team, so they did the round robin. I believe they had the number 2 seed. They had Columbus in the first round, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Columbus takes them out in 5, including the Game 1 5 overtime game. Then you have second round against Boston. Tampa usually beats Boston. By usually, I mean every time but 2011. Then you have in the 3rd round, it was, who was in the Islanders. Islanders gave them their toughest challenge, but then in the final they played Dallas. And although Dallas wins Game 1 and Game 5, Tampa wins the rest. So they win that Stanley Cup. 2021, they actually take a step back a little bit. 36-17-3, 75 points in the pandemic shortened season. That was because the previous Stanley Cup was awarded in September, so they had to start the season later. 56-game season. They finish 8th that season, and they defend their title. They play Florida in the first round in the first year of the Battle of Florida. Even though Florida's seated higher, Tampa beats them. Then you have, in the second round, Carolina. Tampa takes care of them in 5. At Florida in 6. Carolina in 5. Conference final, they play the Islanders once again. They beat them in 7. And then in the final, they take care of Montreal in 5 games. No trouble with them at all. Then you have 2022. They're going for the three-peat. 51-23-8, 110 points for 8th in the league. They get, in the first round, who did they play in the first round that year? They played, it wasn't Boston. Who did they play in the first round that year? It was Toronto. They beat Toronto in 7, and then they end up playing Florida in the second round. The President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers back for round 2, and they sweep them. So they're now 2-0 against the Florida Panthers in the playoffs at this point. Conference final, they have the Rangers. They go down 2-0. Game 3, they're down, but they end up coming back and winning that along with 3 straight. Then in the final, they play Colorado, which is where their run stops. They lose in the Stanley Cup final in 2022 after going back-to-back in 20 and 21. And then they really have not got back there since. 2023, they go 46-30-6 for 98 points. 13th in the league, they lose in the first round to Toronto in 6. 2024, 45-29-8 for 98 points once again. 13th in the league again. And they lose in the first round again, this time to the Florida Panthers in 5 games. 2025, they go 47-27-8 for 102 points, where they finish 8th, and once again they lose in the first round to the Florida Panthers in 5. So my question here is this another first round exit, or can you see Tampa going further? I definitely can't see them going further. The problem is they got to play Toronto. They got to play Florida, Ottawa, Montreal, Detroit are all going to be better. Buffalo's going to be better. Boston, while out of it, they could have a bounce-back season. So my question to the comments is, what do you think Tampa's going to do this season? I want to thank you all so much for watching this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Have a good one.